everyone. Welcome to the channel. I'm Tony, and I run Shinsho Yoga. I am a certified yoga teacher and a lay-ordained Zen Buddhist, and this is a brand new endeavor for me. I am a teacher here in New Jersey, where I teach yoga and also teach meditation and hold classes for it. And I've realized over my time of teaching that people often struggle to know how to get into yoga or how to get into meditation, or is it right for them? And often media and social media especially can portray it to be something that it's not. And over time I've said, why doesn't someone teach them that? Well, that someone is me. So I have decided to start the channel, and I'm going to offer videos and talking about just these things. Teaching you about yoga and the basics of yoga and maybe some more complex yoga and the ideas of meditation and Zen Buddhism and how yoga and Buddhism walk hand in hand with one another because Buddhism comes from yoga, talking about the history of both and whatever other topics that are going to be associated with that and spirituality to be able to offer to you. These are the things that I offer my students locally, but I feel these messages are important. And I know that there's been certain students over the time that have shared with me how they've helped them out. So I want to do the same for as many people in the world as I can. And that might be a grand endeavor and something huge to take on, but I've never been one to shy away from a challenge. And I think it's too important not to. So I hope that this speaks to you. I hope these things work for you. And I hope it's something you'll enjoy. But I don't want to keep going on and on about what the channel's going to be. I'd like to start telling you about what we're going to do for today. And for today, I want to just start with yoga basics. I'm going to do a whole bunch of videos about yoga basics, just starting with basic poses. In my opinion, as a teacher, they're the most important. Right? Mastery of a practice. Mastery is a word that shouldn't be thrown around too lightly and thinking that, well, I'm a master, I'm done. You never finish learning. It's a continual process. Growth is a continual process. But mastery of it really for your body and in those moments that you're in, each moment, are you mastering your practice, right? For lack of a better way to put it. So coming to the basic poses and really doing them as best for your body, as your body is for that day, is working on the mastery of them. If you go to a group class, say for yoga, especially if you're brand new to it, it can be pretty daunting. Right? And you don't have individual instruction in that. You don't have the teacher coming by to you and saying, oh, Mary, you're got to do this or do that, or oh, Joe, you need to do this or that. The class is moving, right? And you might have a teacher come by and correct you on certain things, but there's often a lack of context, especially if you're new to it. You don't know why they're adjusting you, what you're doing. And you might think, oh, I'm doing this wrong. Well, you're not actually doing it wrong. The teacher's just adjusting you to help you get into the pose further. Maybe they've seen that you're not sinking as far as you could. You've come to a comfortable place, and they want to bring you past that. So it can be very challenging to know if you don't study the practice what you should be doing with it. So I really want to be able to offer that in a series of videos, again, with many other things, to be able to teach you how to do the basic postures and how to do them well. And well means what's best for your body. Right? Some days you're Gumby. Some days you're the Tin Man. It's going to be different every day. The practice is a means to an end. Right? We do the best we can for our body that day. At the core, yoga is self-care. We're taking care of ourselves. So we're not going to judge ourselves in the practice. We're not going to judge others. As I always say in my classes, there is no yoga judge. At the end of class, I'm not going to give out a trophy and say, you won yoga for today. Or mark down on the sheet, you did well, but you didn't do so well. That's not yoga. You enter in a sacred space. You're there to practice and take care of yourself. Do the best for your body if you can. Put an honest effort into where you are. Have a honest intention to do the best you can for that day. And that's all. That's all you have to do. And breathe. I'm going to talk about the breathing throughout the practice that I offer. Right? The most important part. So, just in case I'm rambling, let's get into the first pose I want to talk about for today. And that's child's pose. Considered to be a relatively basic pose, to be home pose or a resting pose often. But it is a beneficial pose. It's not just a pose to rest in. It does a lot for your body. Child's pose works the sacrum. Child's pose can work the inner hip, especially if you do a wide leg pose. It's going to work the spine and the shoulders, right? Especially depending on what you do with the arms. It can also help with the neck. It can also help with the front of the chest. There's a lot of things it does, but primarily really getting into the hip area, right? Sacrum and into the back. So, child's pose. Coming into child's pose is going to be dependent on your body, right? So, men, you're probably going to want to take the knees wide. Ladies, you can do them wide or close together. It really depends on your body. Gentlemen have different anatomy, so needless to say, a wide stance on this can often help you be more comfortable in the pose. But what's very important is to bring the toes together. So generally we start from all fours. You're going to bring the toes together, and for me, I'm going to take my knees wide. Again, much more comfortable for me. From here, sit back on your heels, generally with the breath, taking an exhale. Allow the forearms and the arms to come long up front. Allow them to rest down, not reaching. Your teacher may have you do something like this in a class. That's specific instruction that they would have you do. Otherwise, allow them to rest and bring the forehead down to the mat. Allow the chest to sink. Allow yourself to sink back on the heels. And you'll close the eyes and breathe. And you begin to follow your breath. Follow your inhale and you follow your exhale. Now, if this posture is too challenging on the shoulders, you can sweep the arms along the sides of the body, palms facing up, forehead down. Now, let's say even that is too challenging for you. Maybe you have tightness in the shoulders and the back, or tightness in the legs that you can't come all the way down. Right? We have props for that to help you. Props are never cheating in your practice. Props are very important. And what we have here are blocks and blankets. I tell all my students before class, grab 2 blocks and a blanket. I always have them for me in my practice because they're very important in helping you. Some days you may need them, some days you may not, but they are never cheating. They help you get into the full expression of the pose as is right for your body that day. This is your standard yoga Mexican blanket. This is your block. This is a heavy-duty cork one. There's many different types you can use. Just whatever block the studio is using, and eventually I'll do a whole video on different props. But one of the things you can do is use your blanket under your knees. Now, most yoga studios have a hardwood floor. So depending on the thickness of your mat and how good your knees are, will depend on how easy it is for you to be able to sink down in that. So I often like to put a blanket underneath my knees because my mat isn't overly thick. And again, I'll do a whole video on thickness of mats at some point. And again, having a hard floor underneath. This floor, of course, has a carpet, but, pretend it's wood. It's concrete underneath it, so that's hard enough. So bringing the blanket underneath your knees can help you take the pressure off here and allow you to sink into this. Or here. Now, let's say in the process, you can't get your head all the way down. Maybe that's challenging for you. Maybe you have the blanket under your knees, but you're still kind of hovering here. A couple things you can do. 1, make a soft fist. Maybe you don't need this much. Maybe you can just stack the hands. Maybe you need more. That's where the block comes in. Maybe the problem isn't not being able to get your head down. Maybe the problem is back here in the heels. Maybe you can No matter what you've tried, you're still kind of hovering here. You can use a block. Place it between the heels and the glutes. Or here. Worst case scenario. Let's say you're not having any issues with the knees, but you can't get your heels all the way back. Or maybe the studio you're in, maybe it's a busy Saturday morning and somebody's grabbed up all the blocks and all you can get is a blanket. Take the blanket. Any one of those is acceptable. Wherever your body is for that day, follow it, listen to it, do what it tells you to do. Just because you were in class last time and you were able to do it without an issue doesn't mean that you can do it this time in class without an issue. Your body's going to be different every day. Again, some days you're Gumby, some days you're the Tin Man. Just listen to your body and do what it tells you. So, child's pose, also known in Sanskrit as balasana. So if you have a teacher that likes to use Sanskrit, I use Sanskrit, but I often use both the English and Sanskrit terms. I like to maintain that traditional aspect of it. If they say balasana with a B, balasana, that is child's pose. You may find some teachers who call it different. There are some different ways out there. There are some conflicting information at times, but the general I found is that. But the most important thing in the practice, no matter what, and all the things I showed you here, whether you're wide leg, close together, with a prop, without a prop, whatever, arms swept, not swept, it's what we're doing here that matters the most. At its core, yoga is meditation. That's where it all came from. What we do in our modern yoga practices become more of an exercise than it was the original spiritual intention of it. I try as my best as I can to incorporate that back into the practice. Granted, I wasn't alive 5,000 years ago when yoga was created, so I'm doing the best I can from a modern perspective. And that's why I try to incorporate the Zen Buddhism. But here, what do we do here is the most important part. What we do here is the most important part. So you breathe and you follow your breath. And as your thoughts arise, you allow them to pass by, and you return to the breath. You do that time and again. Anytime a thought that arises that takes you out of being present in the moment on the mat. Maybe you have somewhere to go after the class. Maybe as you're watching this video, your tea water is boiling, or maybe somebody made coffee in the house and you can smell it, or maybe you haven't gone to the store yet for today, and it's coming up and you're looking at the timer and you're looking at the timer in the corner and you say, oh, it's got 5 more minutes on this video. I can go. Let it go by. Breathe. Acknowledge the thought. Allow it to pass by and return to the breath. Over and over and over again. Each time a thought arises that takes you out of being present in the moment on the mat, allow it to pass by and return to the breath. That's the basis for meditation. It is not about stopping our minds. It's about not allowing the strong emotions that we have to rule us, and not being pulled into thoughts of the future that lead to anxiety, or thoughts of the past that can lead to depression. It's about staying right here, present, and what we're doing. And that's all you're really looking to do with your yoga practice. The physical practice is a means to an end. We practice our practice, we follow our breath, we allow the thoughts to pass by, and we return to the breath. However well you do physically in that practice that day, it doesn't really matter. Just put in your honest effort, have a proper intention, do the best you can for yourself that day. And if you do that, you've done yoga. So, that's my little bit here for today, a little bit for our first video. And I got to go edit this and see how it all turned out. You know how much time it took just to get this. It's a lot more work than you would think. But I'm hoping that this reaches people and it helps people, because it's helped me. So, thank you for your time. Namaste.